Should more African nations join the Year of Uta?
I would say every descendant of Africa should go home.
But the same things are happening. The tax money is still coming back to Europe.
How do we contribute to the decolonization of Africa?
So if Africa is our focus, are we then neglecting the Caribbean?
The year returned so successful, 1.9 billion. 1.9 billion. All of a sudden, the whole world shut down.
Making sure that people on the continent see the real picture of how we live here.
Welcome from Ghana, Accra.
Enter Decipher.
Quarantine Convos. Enjoy weekly discussions with people from around the world, assisting us in dealing with this normal, mentally, spiritually, and physically. We feature nutritionists, psychologists, therapists, personal trainers, home educators, legal experts, and more, bringing you all the information and inspiration you need. Check out Quarantine Convos every Thursday from 7 p.m, live on Got Kush TV.
Greetings, everyone, and a happy fighting 2022. Now, I know that we haven't been around for a little while, and at the same time, I want to recognize that we're in 2022. Times they are changing. Do you see a repeat of last year taking place this year? Yes, I do. And so I also want to recognize that, there's a new fight on our hands. It's getting very real out here. Yeah. But also at the same time, I want you to recognize that 2022, and I heard this wonderful phrase, and I'm going to quote the brother Courtney Winston and our Black Cast Speakers Lounge, and he says it's not 2022, it's 2020. Bless you. So stay blessed, be blessed this year. It's going to be a packed year this year, and so we have a lovely show, and I think it's really fitting for the times that we're in. We've just had the season of Kwanzaa, and I hope you had a chance to rest and recuperate, ready for the new fight for 2022. Tonight we have a fantastic guest on this evening who works with young people, but I want to, I don't want to dwell too much on the news. I don't, right? But I do want to mention a couple of things. And, there's this ongoing conversation about the party. Yeah. quote. Yeah. And I heard a few things today about this whole debacle. And this, to me, this is a whole distraction, because this is also an opening to start pressing other areas of, what other people were doing and stuff. So, yeah, it's a bit of a launch pad for other things, right? But I heard something that their opposition said today, and I thought that was really interesting. And he said, a spectacle of a man that's run out of road. Yeah, and that's really, that really puts it into perspective in terms of what's going on over there with these guys. Yeah. Now, I do feel it. I'm a doula. Those who don't know, I'm a doula. So I I'm concerned about what's going on, in the NHS as it stands. And I know some of you would have seen, I've seen it go around millions of times almost, with the doctor that had that conversation at King's College Hospital. And I thought it was really great of him to do that. I think that's, he's a real hero to some. But, February, I think it's February the 3rd. February 3rd, that's when, they're going to need to take the, vaccine. Otherwise, there's going to be the possibility of losing jobs. So, your health and well-being are paramount during these times, because taking care of ourselves, and not relying on a system that's broken is going to be key. So I don't want to dwell on that. I just want to let you know, keep yourselves healthy, keep your minds healthy, plan your work and work your plan. All right. So without further ado, I do want to introduce this guest this evening. And I happened to come across his work on Instagram. So I was really impressed with that work. And I wanted to introduce you to Stephen Ismail Thomas. Now, he is trained in M.I.S.P. and paws mindfulness meditation. He's a teacher in these. He runs Mindbubbles Project, which teaches mindfulness to children and young people in both primary and secondary schools. Stephen recognizes that mindfulness builds success in areas such as improving awareness, focus, and concentration, and has been working with young people for over 17 years in and around education on his mission to improve mental health awareness in the Black community. The Mindbubbles Project also works with young people within the workplace and the wider community, working with Father to Father and Barnet and Southgate College, Yoga for Life Project, corporate clients and families. So without further ado, I'd like to pull up the proverb for this evening and then bring our guest forward. Now, with the mind, as you know, I'm a big advocate for, emotional and mental wellness. So I thought this proverb was quite fitting. And the proverb goes, when there is no enemy within, the enemies outside cannot hurt you. And that's where we're at right now with the times that we're in. It's the work that we've got to do on ourselves is absolutely key. So don't hesitate to get involved in the conversation. I'll introduce you to the link in a little while. If you want to get involved in the conversation and come halfway through, you can if you like. So don't be shy. It's a new year. If you were shy last year, you can put it to the side and you can get involved. But that'll be halfway through the show. We'll see where we're at. And, don't hesitate to express yourself and what it is that's there for you, because look, these conversations are happening. You're listening to the radio, they're happening everywhere, and it's for us to have these conversations too, and not just be watching or bystanders or observing other people having these conversations. These are our conversations, this is our community, and we owe it to our community to have these kinds of conversations too. All right, so don't hesitate to get involved, come and share, and let me know if you're in the comments, and I will hell you up. All right, so without further ado, I will bring through our brother Stephen Ismail Thomas. Greetings.
Evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
Loving the intro. This is the fact that people have the intro, so it's nice to have an intro like that.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you for blessing our first show of the year. So I really want to kind of go in deep. The work that you're doing is beautiful work, and so needed during these times. And I would love, and I get that you've been doing your work for a long time, and so I'd really be interested in, if you like, where you started, where the journey began.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to come on this platform and share the work that I do. First of all, it kind of started with me, and I've probably told this story many times. So for those who don't know, I started coming up to 13 years next month. I started yoga Just went to a yoga class in my local Fitness First, and from there I just looked through the door, saw these people kind of stretching. A couple of weeks before, didn't really take an interest. The teachers obviously clocked me, always kind of lingering nearby, so she's kind of invited me in and said, just try the practice and see how you get on. And I found it extremely difficult, but I persevered, and from doing that, I developed. That was kind of my inroad in, but I kind of became more interested in the holistic aspect of yoga, because it really used to make me feel good. So I kind of got hooked in that way, and I started to look at the ancient practice and where it came from and who cultivated it, and it really set me on a journey. So a couple of years after that, I was using a lot of the practices that I was doing in yoga classes at the end, the breathing practices. I was using them on projects that I was working on, especially a project called Upward Bound, which is a Saturday school in Islington, and we work out of the London Met University, which has one of the best in terms of including the communities, one of the best unis in the UK, because it's in the community. It has a lot of people that come from the community, so the outreach work is fantastic. So we work with Islington schools. We have kids coming on a Saturday and they do maths, English, and so I started to do some of the breathing practices in class to kind of help the kids focus. So they sent me on a mindfulness course about 6-7 years ago, 8-week foundation course, and I had to do a certain amount of hours, and then I went on a course to be able to deliver mindfulness to secondary school kids, called .B, which was the M.I.S.P organization. And from there, I started to cultivate a way of introducing mindfulness into classrooms. So it's kind of grown organically in terms of the work that I do. It all started off with kids, secondary school kids on a Saturday, and then I did a primary school course as well, so I was able also to teach. I became part of a project called Success Club, which is a transition program in the London Borough of Enfield, where we work with kids in primary school, and then we follow them into secondary school. So it's really about following their journey and supporting them in the transition from a really small primary school into a huge secondary school. They come to our lessons, and the baseline is mindfulness and meditation. They get to look at their journey and their development. So all of these different projects have enabled me to kind of go away and do my own thing, which is the Mindbubbles Project. And the bubbles stand for a thought. The Mindbubbles as a thought is like, we have between 60,000 and 100,000 thoughts a day, and each of those bubbles represents a thought. So that's how the name came about. My wife and daughter came up with that name, and I kind of ran with it. So it's a family operation. So that's the kind of journey. Sorry.
Thank you. And I mean, you talk a little bit about how it impacts, young people. I think when you talk about the transition into secondary school, that's a really important transition. I think having children that have been in the education system, I found that transition, there was very little being done when my eldest was in secondary. There was very little being done for them to transition really well. It was a culture shock. So how does what you do for them in terms of that transition, how do you do this, like, get measured? What's the results that you find from that?
Good question. So when we were starting to work with them from year 5, end of year 5, we would do all the shadow work I call it shadow work, Welcome, Felix. With all the work that you don't see to prepare you for that journey. So they'll look at their resilience, and resilience is a word that people use, but do we have an understanding of what resilience really is? So we would break it down into the things that were stopping them from growing. Yeah. So a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset, the obstacles, the bugs, the fixes, the things that they enjoyed. And most importantly, you would basically record the journey they went on. So this is the baseline at the end of year 5. Year 6, we've had some blips, we've had some highs, we've had some lows, we've had some difficulties, you made some mistakes. What are these things? Yeah, so we would do a lot of reflection with them. And in order to get them ready for reflection, they would have to really sit in stillness. So they started to cultivate a way of breathing properly, reflecting, being kind to one another, how they spoke to one another. And there was a lot of repetition. So they would come in, and first thing they would do is rate the last 7 days. So that was an exercise called Rate Your Week. So you would look at the last 7 days and you would give your score out of 10. Yeah. So some weeks were good, some weeks weren't so good. Things were difficult. Why were they difficult? What did you learn from that difficulty? And was it the end of the world? Because you had a difficult Wednesday, did that mean your whole week was difficult? And it'd be like, no. So we tried to put things into context where they would look at what they were finding difficult and most importantly, why. So they could basically build muscle memory around what can you do better next time. So it's really giving young people tools that will enable them to, when they're in a difficulty, what tool am I going to get to help me look at how I can resolve this? Yeah. And if we catch them really, really early, it means that we've got adults that can think critically, because schools don't teach you how to think critically. They just teach you, how to be part of the wider community, go and work for somebody, not really have dreams or ambitions, and when a lot of kids break that mold, they're kind of seen as outliers, especially our kids. So for example, sister, our boys leave primary school at a higher functioning level, our black boys. And by the time they get to year 9, they've dropped a couple of levels. Why is that?
Right.
Why are we not having discussions in our community about the fact that the education system is under-educating our boys? I haven't even got to the girls yet.
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because I'm a mother to 3 sons, so their emotional well-being, and thank you. and so I recognize, I've been doing a lot of study on black boys for many, many years. Your Joanza Kunjufu, the conspiracy to destroy black boys. There are other authors, Saving Our Sons. I can't think of the other author for that. And but there is a book that I remember reading many, many years ago, and it was Gifted at Primary, Failing by Secondary. And it was very much about that dynamic where there's a whole shift in seeing a child as warm and cuddly. And then that's it. Gifted at primary, failing at secondary. And thank you for that, if anyone wants to know. And and so for me, in understanding that in more context, it's that knowing that your child is a warm and cuddly year 6, really sweet, or even a really warm and cuddly year 5, and then they've had the summer holidays and they've grown, and now they're at eye level, and that's where the threat begins.
I think before that.
Well, Expand, please do. Go ahead.
It's from so I talk about my own experience. So I'm not that big, 6 foot, but I can remember in primary school, teach like I only had 2 male teachers in primary school, and when I had 2 male teachers, I did really well. So that was year 6, which is the fourth year, and
the last year of
year 3.
primary.
So there was no coincidence, back then that I did well when I had a male role model, and when it was reverse, I struggled with white women teachers, so my behavior was always called into question. He was aggressive, he was this, he was that. I'm only 5'6". What could I possibly do to you that you feel that I'm a danger? And moving on 40 years later, I see that in primary schools now, I see that in secondary schools now. Oh, he's being threatening. He's not being threatening, he's upset. There's a big difference. He's clearly upset about something and he's expressing himself. You as an adult should be able to differentiate between when a young person is upset and when a young person is being considered physically threatening. But they haven't bothered to really, I mean, you're working in a city school, you need to understand your service users.
Well, you're talking about cultural competence.
Yeah, you're talking about cultural competence. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. And for me, things have got worse, where I see you could be 6'5", black you're still a youth to me. Because your brain, you're 12, you're 13, but physically, you're this big. You don't even feel comfortable being. You're this big, And the fact that they highlight their physicality, that's that micro racism thing where it's like
that microaggressions.
But what could he possibly do? You're a teacher. You're the one that's in charge. You're an adult.
But then isn't it down to when you look at the constant structure and the constant promotion of the negatives with black and the stereotypes that they constantly bombarding us with? You've got your, I don't know, Caucasian teacher from, I don't know, Hampshire, who, is, doesn't have any, black people in their circle, and so they're coming into these schools, they're often coming into academies to get their stripes, and they've done an urban school, so they've ticked that off of their kind of like career path, and then it's a lot of it is measures. I used to be a parent governor as well, right? So I was in my son, when my son was in primary school. My oldest son is 21 now, but when he was in primary school, and and so it means then that I was always pushing for that level of cultural competence. When it came to Black History Month, they were always dealing with slavery or the civil rights movement, and I was so I was pushing conversations around Kush, the Kush Empire, what was prior, before these events, and so I was quite pushy and managed to get my ideas through the door. But I recognize in secondary school, I mean, there's a few things that go on in secondary school. I mean, you spoke a little bit about feelings and it's almost like discerning the difference between feelings and facts. What's happened versus what you feel. I'll give you an example. This is a true story, everyone. You're about to hear, I might be, listen, if you see my face all over somewhere viral, it was me. So yesterday I was on the bus, with the children, just went into shopping, and where I went on to this bus, there was a lady who came on, a Caucasian lady who came on. She seemed to have come on drunk, so she was a bit drunk and disorderly. But she came on and she didn't give her pass, didn't show her pass or something like that. So I was like, okay. So, the bus driver stopped and had her do that. When she got emotional. She got emotional for not being accountable for showing her ticket, right? So, tapping her oyster at them. So she went and tapped it, came back, created a situation. Now, this is the power of things escalating and going from 0 to hero, you know, zero, if you like, 0 to 100, if you like, right? And then what happened is she got upset. She went and sat in front of a brother, yeah, who was already agitated, yeah, by the stop of the bus, right? And they got into it, and it looked like they got into, you know, she put her hat, I don't know how much she did, but she put her hands on him, yeah? And I don't think it was too much, but it was enough for him to say to her, look, I have, I said to you, you know what, I warned you. Now, instead of kind of stopping now, again, he could have done something. He could have stepped back. He could have gone to another seat. He could have done a few things, actually. Yeah, but he didn't. Instead, what he did is he started hitting this woman, punching this woman.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I've got my smaller sons, 12-year-old, 7-year-old with me. And I'm not having that. That's not happening on my watch, right? So I'm on a bus. This is just in the middle of, school runs time, you know, all the children on the bus, all the adults except me, yeah, and one other lady, yeah, elderly lady, black woman. Everybody comes off the bus, yeah, except all the young people stay, but people are running off the bus because they don't know how to deal with it, yeah. And one woman says, you know, one of my sons hears a woman say, I'm scared, and she runs, yeah. And, you know, all those kinds of movies, they were talking, the boys compared it to a film called Shang-Chi, yeah, Marvel, yeah, you know, like, oh, well, now I understand what it looks like when there's a situation on a train or a tube or whatever. So anyway, I stepped in. I had to step in the situation. I said, look, it's not even a fair fight. You know, she's a female, etc., etc. I stepped in the middle, and, you know, it was about her coming off the bus at this point. She was drunk and disorderly, and it was never going to go well. Yeah, however it was going to go. However, I said, okay, you know what? So I'm trying to step in between it. And then she connects to me, right? So she hasn't hit me hard or anything like that. Yeah. I'm like, no, nobody test me, you know. I might be 5 foot, but don't mess with me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know, I'm at a point now where I'm gonna have to drag her off the bus, help drag her off the bus, because yeah, it's gonna go off in here. He's around behind me. He's, you know, close to about 6 foot. He's trying to lean over me to punch her. I'm like, no, yeah. And anyway, we managed to get her off the bus, and I explained to him, because look, in that situation, he wasn't right, but I also, and she wasn't right. But what I didn't want in a situation was like, the police come, they arrest this guy, and we're dealing with another George Floyd situation, yeah? And I didn't want a situation like that. And I explained to him, look, you know, at the end of the day, you know, let a sister handle it, let a sister talk to her, what have you. Anyway, she came off the bus. I was fine. I wasn't scared, yeah? And those are the kind of things I don't allow. I've been in many situations where I've had to stop boys, you know, getting into a altercation with weapons. I've been in those situations before. So it's not my first rodeo in dealing with situations like that, but it's at the same time, I'm really clear that how powerful it was that when we're not being accountable for our own behavior, how easily things can escalate from 0 to 100. And this situation just didn't need to happen. It was such an unnecessary situation, but it was definitely, you know, it was very clear in the end that I'm glad it went the way it went, because obviously there's a lot of young people there. And also I'm not condoning any man hitting any woman. And I'm not sure, you know, I'm not having young people, you know, observing that it's okay and everybody just ignoring it. That's just not me, yeah? A woman is a woman, and you have to know that this is not okay, yeah? And of course, if she's a Caucasian woman now, yeah, there's some extra juice that comes with that, yeah, which I didn't want to see, yeah? So she came off the bus, etc., etc. But so when you talk about, you know, discernment, yeah, the discernment of, you know, recognizing your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, like, okay, you had a bad day. And I remember, you know, I have a strong interest in, because of the work that I do, I have a strong interest in the psychology of childbirth, and, you know, what's happening here is happening in the body. And so I recognize, you know, that power that's happening with a lot of young people, especially when we look at the times we're in, last year being, a very high rate of stabbings that we heard about, that emotional intelligence, it's not really getting fed in schools. It's, minimal, at best, I remember, when my son was in primary school, though, there was a lady, one of his teachers, he was in year 2, and she used to teach something called Relax Kids. And if you know Relax Kids, it's all about meditations for children, and this is where that whole when they do peer massage, a lot of this peer massage comes out of that work. And I know it doesn't happen in secondary school. A lot of that kind of like disappears in secondary school. You're not going to have, you might have yoga for lunch at lunchtimes in primary school. Those things disappear. And so, I'm interested in how your work crosses over, in secondary school.
Okay. So let me work myself backwards. So with Mindbubbles, I'm in a couple of schools, but I'll just talk about a primary school in Enfield. It's on the Hereford Road, so it's past Ponder's End, but I don't know what it's really called. And this is my second cycle with them. So they're going to be taking their exams May, June. So I've gone in there. The class is quite challenging. They've been like that for a couple of years. It isn't anything new. So I've gone in there and I've looked at them, and it's like, when I'm talking, they're talking. So for all of those things to me, it's like, okay, let's deal with this layer by layer. Which part of you talking is okay? And they're like, they're looking at me like, this is what I do. I do this all the time. All right. So if you're talking to your neighbor, how are you listening to me? So it's not a thing that you're disrespecting me, but if this is happening all the time, at some point, it's a disrespect. So imagine you're talking to me and I'm just starting to have a conversation with someone else. How would that make you feel? It'd be like, well, what's the point? Exactly what I'm trying to say. So we're literally starting the lesson, and we're looking at things that they do on automatic pilot. In their chair, it's like, bring yourself back. When you're starting to look at what other people are doing, it's like, bring yourself back. So we really start with what kind of things are we looking at?
You're talking about being present.
Very much so. So I have I've just literally done a PowerPoint today where I look at 5 ways you can listen better.
Excellent.
So I'll give you an example of one. Your listening position. So I have my kids get up and move around the classroom if they can't hear me, and I move around the classroom, so I don't just stand in the middle in front of the board. I might go and sit down on a table somewhere, or sit down next to a student. So I'm constantly moving, and they're kind of moving with me. So we're looking at your listening position. We're looking at your intention of listening. What is when you're listening to someone? Because a lot of these youths, it's like, they already got an answer for you. You haven't listened to what I'm saying. Don't listen to reply, listen to understand. There's a big difference. And I keep saying that is because a lot of them, because they've got so used to just answering back. Why are you answering back? You haven't heard what I've said to you. So it's a didactic conversation. I say something, you process it, you say something back. And this is what happens. It isn't that I say something, it gets completely lost, and you just answer on automatic. So we look at all of these things constantly. I go in there, we get to learn their names very quickly. So I enter a room and I say good afternoon to everybody. My expectation is that you greet me the same way I've greeted you. Good afternoon, year 6s. Good afternoon, Stephen. That's how we start. Whatever time of the day, that's how we start. Because that's the culture I come from. So I'm expecting, if I've shown you manners and respect, I'm getting it back. If you're not used to that, get unused to it, because this is my house. This is how we do things, yeah? And it's about respecting one another, yeah? And we really deal with being present, as you said. We break it down, yeah? If you're sitting next to somebody who's going to disturb you, move now. Some of them move. If you've got something in front of you that's going to distract you, move it away. They move their they move their pencils. I don't have any writing down. You got to retain everything, yeah? So it's about listening. I don't try and talk for more than 4 or 5 minutes, because I know it's quite difficult for young people it's difficult for people to focus. So we break down how long you should be listening for, your listening position, your listening intention, yeah? I don't shout, but my tone is enough. So if I'm not happy with something, you know by my tone. I don't need to raise my voice, because raising your voice has never been an appropriate tool when you're dealing with anybody, when you want them to focus on you. We deal with like being present, breath work. So we spend a couple of minutes regulating ourselves. So we do a counting game where they count their breath for a minute. Another game where they count their thoughts for a minute, and I get them to recognize how grounded they feel after that. So it's about focusing on your breath, yeah? How deep or shallow is your breath, yeah? Your heartbeat, does it speed up or slow down? Your pulse, your chest moving in and out, your belly going up and down, depending. So it's introspection, yeah? And I tell them what these words mean. Yeah, so they're big words, but you're gonna have an understanding of what we're doing and why we're doing it. Yeah, so they sit there and we do a couple of warm-up games. There's a counting game that I do with them, and I shared it on Instagram the other day, and it was like the numbers need to move around the room. Your neighbor can't say the next number. Yeah, if the number is said at the same time, we start from 0. This class couldn't get back. When I started with them, they couldn't get past 5. They couldn't understand why they couldn't get past 5. And I told them that it's about teamwork, it's about spatial awareness, and it's about working together. Yeah, it's not about the loudest person or your alphas always saying the numbers. It's a group game. Look at what's going on around you. Yeah, they got past 10 and it was like they won the World Cup. But for me, that's movement, because they're learning and they're enjoying the learning and they understand what they're doing. They're seeing movement, yeah? And I let them know that I've seen them move forward. In 6, we've had our battles, don't get me wrong, but there's been movement. It's been incremental, but a lot of this is undoing a lot of generational work where kids go to school, they're told that if they do well, they'll be able to go to college and uni and contribute to the wider society. That's not true, because a lot of our kids are starting at -5, -6. So you get into uni is a battle in itself. So we need to give them some other tools. You know, some of them are entrepreneurs, you know. You don't have to go to uni to be an entrepreneur, but you do have to have someone show you how this all works. Yeah, and a lot of them have the tools, but obviously they're using it in the wrong way. You know, so if you have those tools, let's use it in the right way. Let's connect you with someone who's going to be able to sit down with you and show you how you can do this thing properly. Yeah, so it's a combination of short bite-sized exercises, a 5-6 minute meditation. You know, I can show you videos of my class sitting in complete stillness and just focusing on themselves, yeah, within 5 or 6 weeks, and being able to recognize that they were able to just center themselves, yeah, with some prompts and breathing exercises, and kind of reflect on the fact that it's getting a little bit easier for them. You know, it gets easier with practice.
No, go ahead. No, carry on.
Yeah, we're building muscle memory. So this thing here, brain, like this is your biggest muscle. This determines how your day operates. So if your mind is foggy or it's really, really muddled, yeah, we need to find ways of getting it to focus. And I use the different parts. I don't know much about the brain, but I know there's certain parts of the brain that are attached to mindfulness. Your your prefrontal cortex, and I call it the PFC, Perfect Fried Chicken, and I remember that. And it's like that film Inside Out is such a good film to use as reference. Who was the PFC? Was the lady in orange. What did the lady in orange do? She was the control center. She managed everybody else. Okay, all right. The hippocampus. Yeah. What does that do? Oh, they can tell you what different parts of the brain do. I didn't know that at 7, 8, 9 years old. Yeah. The insula, the amygdala. What is the amygdala? That's the fire alarm system. So if something's happening, that one goes,
the fight or flight.
Yes. And they understand all of that. Yeah, that's your flight or flight. That's probably one of the oldest parts of the brain. Yeah. So they understand when they get stressed out or anxious, that's the alarm bell going off. Yeah. And how you then calm that down or lessen the noise is to really focus on your breath. And the breath.
Can I ask you a question though? I wanted to ask you about.
No,
it's cool. But I wanted to ask you. I mean, there's a couple of things when you talk about, it's that seek first to understand and be understood. Yeah, listen to understand. Yeah, with a lot of people, young people often having that, again, that quick fire response. Yeah, but not actually really listening to understand, listening to speak. Yeah. Now you've been doing this a long time, and one of the comments here, I'm gonna flag up one of these comments here.
Okay.
Africans Arise says this is great work, so needed in this culture of mobile phones, social media, constant distractions. And I'm glad you touched on that point, Africans Arise, because my next point was I remember coming across in the last few years the conversation for the attention economy. Yeah, and being that the society that we live in social media is literally designed to draw your attention, the pop-ups, the algorithms. Yeah, and so you said that you can, after about 6 weeks, you can really sort of see some change. Yeah, it's almost like, well, you've rewired some of their neurons is what you've done. Yeah. And created new neural pathways. But what do you see a significant difference? Because young people, concentration has always been, they always want to be moving around. But have you seen a significant difference in, say, the last 5 years working in schools, where social media has been huge? Yeah. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to start with, you got to remember that the way we teach and learn hasn't changed in probably 250 years. So already there, that's an issue in itself. It's the British school system is based on an agricultural timetable where poor kids from the farms were sent to school throughout the year. You had 6 weeks off. It was designed, church schools, girls were quite good, boys were chastised because they couldn't keep still. And that's how it's remained. It's not, it's being tweaked.
It's not new.
It's not, how do you expect 21st century learners to be learning in a template designed in 1810 or whenever it was? Yeah. We haven't caught up with, we don't use tech the way we could. So the problem I see is that, I do an exercise called Vote with Your Feet. So it's a dynamic, it's an intro game. So get up. So let's start the day now. Everyone stand in the middle of the room. Right. This side is yes, this side is no. Have you had breakfast this morning? You go to this side. The ones that haven't gone to this side, okay, what did you have this morning? I had a little Weetabix. Majority of the class have gone to the nose. So none of you have had breakfast. Go back in the middle. How many have you left the house with a fully charged phone? They're all on the yeses. Okay? So your priority is to make sure that your phone is fully charged so anyone can contact you, but your brain hasn't been given any kind of fuel. Yeah? And then you're coming in to learn. Problem itself. Then we do another exercise. Did you go to bed before 12? No. 1? No. 2 o'clock. all the yeses. So you're entering sleep. You're not even entering sleep. You're getting into your bed at 2 o'clock. You're coming here for 9 o'clock. So already the baselines are our young people are not getting adequate sleep. Yeah, and it starts with them, but also their parents, carers, and guardians. Yeah, you know, your young person not getting enough sleep is a form of neglect as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, it's a form of neglect. They need more sleep than the average adult because they're doing so much learning. A lot of the learning that you do is connected at night time. Yeah. And I tell them this. Their focus, spend a lot of time on their I mean, how many we do have who's been on their phone for more than 6 hours a day? And I check all of their, the monitor things. And it was worse when the kids were on and off. Some of them were doing like 13, 14 hours a day screen time. Yeah. And even though it was quite difficult to get it down, I would say to them, right, I want you to do half an hour less every day this week. So it means that by next week, you'll have 2.5 hours shaved off your average time. And a lot of them could do that. Yeah, because it wasn't too much. Yeah, I didn't want to give them too much, but it was more than enough to say, okay. And when they came in and said, yeah, I was able to use my phone less. Yeah. Don't have your phone on. Don't have your data on when you're going to bed. Turn your data off. Have your alarm on. Yeah. Do a mindfulness exercise. So there's ones that I really use. It's called the meditation. Obviously, it's a mix of meditation and bed. And if you do that before,
meditation, I like that.
Yeah. And adults can do it. I do it all the time. I've been doing it with my daughter for years, and it's looking at your day, looking at the things that could have spiraled out of control and regulating yourself, giving yourself headspace between waking hours and sleeping hours. Yeah, because even though you might be physically tired, your brain is still operating like it's awake. So you can't expect to just hit the sack and go to sleep where your brain's like, oh, I'm still awake. You have to allow your nervous system to rest. And the way you do that is sitting in stillness, focusing on your breath and relaxing the vagus nerve. And if you're doing that throughout your day, you will find that you'll get a more restful sleep. So it's about the quality of your sleep, not just sleeping. And that's what we need to embed in our young people. Not just school saying that, our families, elders, parents, carers, guardians need to make this a priority, making sure our kids go to school with at least the tools to enable them to be able to learn. The other stuff, we can start working on that. But our young people need to be going to school, enough sleep, fueled, so nutrition is important. Just a little toast, anything. Don't come into my classroom if you haven't eaten. Yeah, I'll give them food, water, we get them a little biscuit. I don't care just something to fuel them. Yeah. And then they're ready for learning. They eat fruit, we have fruit in the bananas, whatever, especially bananas. You have to eat it or don't come in my classroom. It's important. And they start to learn the value of like, because they can see that you care. So, if you meet them halfway, they kind of get on board. A lot of kids feel like teachers don't care. And a lot of teachers do care, but there are also a lot that don't. And kids see that quickly. Like, you don't care about me, so why am I even bothering engaging in this lesson?
I think it's funny how you say, I mean, nutrition is key. The feeding the brain is important. And again, high sugar foods, all these different foods, there's not enough. Again, when I was a parent governor, I was a curriculum governor, but I was also the healthy schools governor. So they were getting healthy school status, So I was dealing with getting the healthy school status. So I had to do all the quality control and look at how much salt and how much sugar was in things. And if they're having like brain food and, talking to the school about mega oils and what food has got some mega in it. I was very pushy.
Wow. I would have loved you in my Looking at the schools.
Unapologetically pushy, to the point where when I left my 4-year tenure, they sent me a card saying, "Thank you for the challenge."
Yeah. Imagine. Yeah,
So,
it's good. It's good.
I mean, and nutrition is really, really important. And I think, you spoke a lot about sleep. Now, in this day and time, a teenager, so you said something, and I had to challenge that a little bit, and I just, before I do that, family, if you want to come into the space, I've put the link inside the chat. Here it is. So don't hesitate to come inside the conversation if you want to come inside the conversation today. Yeah. And you'll have to have your camera on, and then I'll see you backstage, and then I'll let you in. All right. And so when we look at I will challenge you a little bit on this, because if you've got a teenager in this attention economy, remember, a lot of them are staying up and they're doing their homework. At the gaming industry, I remember my eldest son, they were doing a project on gaming, and the gaming industry says at the time, and probably more now, but a game is not a successful game unless it is being played by the player more than 80 hours a week.
Really?
Yeah. So, it's the attention economy is alive and well. And I think the young people having stimulation, their neocortex is open, very much the stimulated mind. Even in my field, I often have to say, I found at least in the last 5 years, it's one of the major issues that pregnant women have is overstimulation at night. Yeah.
Really?
And so it's that being able to almost turn that down like a dial. Yeah. Now there's remedies for that. It's beautiful homeopathic remedies for those kinds of things also, and they work really well. And I used to give them to my children as well when they were overstimulated. But I find that in a very stimulated world, how realistic is it for a young person to switch off their phone when they are constantly engaged? Because society, has got them, we come from the generation where TV finish at a certain time and you hear, I'm from that ilk, yeah. Don't be fooled.
Yeah, I understand.
With the lady in the puppet in the background, that one there.
Yeah, 12 o'clock lock off.
You fall asleep in front of the TV.
You'd be lucky if you got a good film weekly.
I was telling my children about this, and I've got no idea. You've got. Remember, you've got everything on demand now. You've got everything on replay. Yeah. You've got everything on. You've got 24-hour TV. The gaming industry, social media. How realistic, when they're not with you, do they do that? Please.
You can still have a conversation that sows the seed. I'm not expecting anybody to be able to go into their 14-year-old's room and just plug out their Xbox without some kind of right. My son was a gamer. My daughter is a I'm raising 2 gamers. She games, she does, but for her, it's a thing where it helps her with her anxiety around school. But you still have to come on a bike ride with me. Yeah, you still have to give me something. So I'm not saying, because I'm in the same digital world as most people.
Them, yes.
Yeah, I'm not saying you could just plug things out and then they're like, okay, let's have a game of Scrabble. But you should still be having these conversations.
There should be some.
Yeah, you still be.
And there should be some kind of, I suppose, a way of being able to help monitor that. Absolutely, I think yes. I mean, with my middle one, who's 12, he's just created his own little YouTube channel. Bless him. Yeah, a gaming YouTube channel. So I'm like, okay, and he's making these kind of quirky videos and what have you, and so he's looking to get more kind of more technique with the game, and with us it was kind of a case of, okay, well, for me, I said to him, okay, if you wanna, he needs a particular amount of, I don't know, credits to buy, for the avatar, for these little things and what have you. And so he came up with the idea to, come up with a YouTube channel so that they send codes and they get their YouTube credits themselves, so they doesn't have to bother me over that, which I love. Yeah, I thought it was really, innovative idea, and so I supported it. I helped him edit his little videos. I go through them. I'm like, okay, are they? Well, take a look at this, etc., etc. Little 5-minute videos, and they're cute. But I've also had to recognize, okay, my younger one who's 7, because the older one's has that interest. He was never really that into it, but he's got interested by default.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these are the challenges, and so it's kind of like we have to kind of like have days where, okay, all right, well, a little time out here, or a little break. Take yourself a little break. Let's do something. Let's read. Let's play a game. Like we still play games. Board games in our house. Play a bit of chess. Something that's going to, strengthen the mind. I'm also a home educator as well. I homeschool, okay. So it's easier for me, I think, to be able to implement that. Then don't get me wrong, the hair has a social circle, but it can be managed. Yeah. The school setting, as we know, they're bombarded with things and seeing things that they wouldn't have normally seen and exposed to. So again, these things open that up. How do you feel, with your work, how do you feel? You said that the young people come into the classroom, and after about 6 weeks, you find that there's a difference in how they kind of like get present in the, to the classroom setting. What do they say about using these practices at home? How easy is it for them to use these practices at home? And do you include the parents inside of this?
With a lot of repetition, I think if you put the responsibility on the kids, you'll find that in a classroom of 30, 10 might be resistant. Then you've got the middle 10 that are like, depending on how they feel. And then you've got 10 that they're on it. They practice at home. They come back and they give you feedback. They talk to their parents. They find it useful for anxiety and stress and sleeping. And I think when you use them as ambassadors, because a lot of the time when you have students that are struggling, and it's always good to do it in bigger groups, it's a thing where you have horizontal learning. So when you ask them how their breath was, some of them are like, I don't know, because it's very difficult to describe something that you do all the time. And then someone might say, well, I noticed that my breathing was a lot deeper, so my exhale was a lot longer than my inhale. And the other person will be like, yeah, I felt that way too. Yeah. So it's about you then expressing that or finding a way to express that, and that's where the horizontal learning is really quite useful, because they then start to think about other people's feedback and relating it to their own experience. So they feel it, and they can't necessarily put it into language, because it's difficult. I mean, when you're doing adults, you can see the struggle. But kids, the beauty of young people is that their minds are so much more flexible and open to change. And I'm not saying that adults aren't, but they've got a lot more stuff going on.
Yeah, I mean, as young people, they would very much be. They have less, even though they are quite intense young people today. They're very intense beings, but they also carry a lot less baggage because they haven't been here long enough to carry something. And what we carry as adults, they're in their childhoods, we've had ours, so we're carrying that plus anything else, like invisible suitcases. And it's very much they are free. This is what you're doing is fantastic, because you're assisting them to if you like, interrupt the trajectory in which they would have gone down. And not to say there's a negative spiral for all young people, but when your attention, is elsewhere, then, and you're not engaged in maybe the work or your aspirations, because aspirations, play a major part in that. The low aspirations in the school settings is a major factor. When you come in with this kind of work, you know, you're setting them up to aspire on an internal level, not just externally. I've hit, this target, I've got this, I've had this exam, I've had this test, I've met this milestone, I've met this criteria, for whichever project. And they know, they don't remember the work that they've done anymore. They don't care about the work that they've done. They've ticked the boxes of what the work that they've done, but it's not nurtured and filled their soul in any way. Yeah. It's quite an empty education, a lot of it. Yeah. Unless you really have those kinds of the balance of, good pastoral care. Yeah. Good, good communication, emotional intelligence, that kind of work inside the schools. It's, it is these young people. Yeah. They come away with an education, but the people that come out of that situation, are they even likable?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really appreciate your intervention then. Yeah. That mind work that allows them also in their, I like to think that the work that you're doing assists the young people going forward in terms of things like conflict resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how they can assist. I mean, maybe tell me a little bit about how that, how young people are. They're very heated. Yeah. Very,
very much so.
It's like they'll pop off at anything, right?
Any little thing. So it's funny when you've got there's a lot of stuff going on with adults that I don't like that teacher, or they come in my classroom. Like, you come in my classroom and you don't say good morning to me, go back out and come back in.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not having that. Like, I'm a stickler for manners, really. And then
just reset them, reset their manners, reset them.
This is what I mean. What there's an old Yoruba saying, what you don't learn at home, you will learn outside. Yeah, it is very much might run in your house, but when you walk in my house, you say good morning to me. And I made that clear from the beginning. Beginning, manners and respect. Yeah.
Yes.
Where I'm coming from. So the youth kind of like fix up, like, yeah. And some of them might kiss their teeth, and it's like, you don't kiss your teeth. Like, you don't kiss them, you brush them. They're like, you don't kiss your teeth. You
have to be sharp. You have to be quick with these, with these.
I think my grandmother is, why are you kissing your teeth? In what context do you think it's okay? There's cultural nuances that we're dealing with, yeah?
Yes.
My if even the kids that I don't see, if I see you in a corridor and you're not in your lesson, I'm going to hot you up. Yeah, so it's better that you don't. Stephen's coming and start running, because they know that I'm going to nab you. Yeah, why are you not in your lesson? Yeah, why are you not in your lesson? Get to your lesson. If you're going to bunk, why are you bunking in the middle of the assembly hall? It's like, it doesn't make no sense.
These children can't even bunk properly.
Yeah. Be silent about your movement.
Hiding inside the school premises is not bunking, no bunking,
You're bunking, but you see this. I can't do it properly, but I prefer if they're in school and they're safe. Yeah, because
absolutely.
The schools kind of know these, especially our girls. I had a girl that I used to talk to. She wasn't in any of my sessions, but she just gravitated towards me, and I'd always check in on her. Yeah. And I know there was stuff going on the road, exploitation and all of that kind of thing. But just through our just through our words, yeah, because she's like, what are you doing? I'm doing stuff with the thing. I would like to do that. Well, if you're behaving yourself in your lessons, this is something we can consider. Yeah. But it was almost like weeks I wouldn't see her. Yeah. And then she'll reappear. And it's like, I need school. Nobody cares. You know what? There's lots of us that care. Yeah. But you need to know, as a young black woman, the community is here to support you. Yeah. These people may not like you or don't care, but we care. Okay. So you need to care about yourself first and foremost, or none of this matters, kind of thing. So it's always paramount is building relationships.
And do you find that there is a difference in how girls receive the work that you're doing and boys receive it? Tell us about that.
Just in general, and I've realized, having my own daughter, that bringing up a son and daughter is very different. And I don't know what it is. I can't really put it into words. So it's like you walk into a room and a young lady's looking at your shoes. It's like, where do you get those shoes from? It's like, you're not ready for shoes. They call me the king of trainers. It's like, this is what, everything that you do is because of my generation. So there's he's relatable. So the way you talk is the way I talk, not the same way. Yeah, but the way that people use language, it's been done for centuries. It's nothing new. The way you dress is nothing new. The way you connect with somebody, it's not new. We've been doing this an awful long time. Yeah. And it's like, I come from the same places as you. I went to the same school as you. You know, I've faced the same difficulties as
challenges.
you. Yeah? But what I didn't have is someone to say, if you do certain things, you can overcome these difficulties. Yeah, the system is set up for you to fail, and you don't even know how the game is being played. I'm going to give you some clues or some prompts that you can find yourself out the game, yeah, and be the best version of yourself. And it isn't big things. Like, I had a young girl that I just wanted her to pass her maths GCSE. I just wanted her to get the maths GCSE, yeah, because she was sleeping in class, not paying attention. I was like, I need you to get that, yeah, and she got it. And it was like the biggest thing in the world. Yeah, it wasn't going to change her life, but it meant that she had something tangible as a springboard. If I can pass my maths GCSE, I can do anything. I'm not trying to be anybody's superhero, because a lot of these problems and issues are embedded in the culture, not just for black people, working class white people. These things have been going on for centuries. But what we can do is give our young people a sense of purpose. And when we give them a sense of purpose, it changes the parameters, because, you know, they can find ways of being the best versions of themselves, you know, and they know that if people care about them, you know, they start to care about themselves. The expectations become higher, you know, because some of them are coming from homes where people don't care. So if you're telling them to do well, it's like, what? I want you to do. Why do you think I'm coming in every Saturday? We want you to do well. That's why we're doing the nurturing. Yeah? And it's a thing where I ask people this, like, how many young people do you speak to, check up on, outside of your own immediate family? And people are struggling. And it's like, I would like you to just touch base with this young person. They're interested in what you're doing. Yeah, just have a conversation with them. Oh, I had a conversation with them. I've signposted them to them, this and this. Just through a half an hour conversation, you've already set them up, giving them a platform, a springboard for them to start to at least find out what they want to do, just through one conversation. And I feel we need to do more of that in our kids. We do a lot of talking, but there's not enough doing. And the people that are doing, and they're not talking about what they're doing, they're just doing it. Yeah. We need to find frameworks where we can come together collectively and work with these kids on so many different levels, academically, holistically, working on their EQ, which is emotional intelligence, you know, how they can build resilience, how they can look at their mindsets, how they can be better communicators. Like, I have a cycle where we just look at communication and how you communicate. You know, we look at the history of communication, yeah, how human beings learn to speak, non-verbal communication, you know, body language, positive body language, tone, intonation, all of these things, because you want to be able to enter a room and make an impression within 20 seconds to say, yeah, that person, you know, you got a young person, they say, yeah, they're walking with purpose.
Yeah,
you,
absolutely.
We don't have enough of those because they don't have any reference, you know.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I've always been very much, I mean, personal development for me has been a big thing. Emotional intelligence has been a big thing for me for over 20 years. So with my
Okay.
children, I've kind of like pushed those kinds of conversations, you know, in terms of who you are when you enter the space, who you're being, you know, what you're doing, being present. Those conversations kind of run inside our family. But I would be interested, and we've got a question here.
You got a question? I see it.
I do indeed, from Africa Arise. Africans Arise. Does Stephen do any work outside of school? Some online sessions, perhaps?
I very much do. So I've been doing. I don't even know what we call this stop-start nature of. So pre-pandemic, I was doing physical stuff. Then I lost all my work because kids were online, and I couldn't get hold of my kids because of the safeguarding stuff. So I decided to do one-to-ones, group work, one-to-ones with parents that reached out to me because their kids were finding it very difficult with the online schooling. So I do taster sessions, half-an-hour taster sessions, mindfulness introduction, not just for kids, for everybody. So it's just an introduction to you to the way I teach mindfulness, and it's very, very different from probably the perceptions of mindfulness. You know, it's about being present, and I use many, many tools to make you get an understanding of what it is. So I work with kids online, adults, young adults online, you know, elders online, you know, and I use many, many different tools. Like with the elders now, we do a class called Mind Dampening, where I use music, and they basically have to write about how the music feels. Now, you can imagine doing this with big people, yeah? Big people. So I had to really speak to my mum, find out what tunes were hot. I kind of knew, and you know, what I would do, I play them a Dennis Brown, Money in Your Pocket. And if you...
All right, come on.
Yes, and then I say, feedback to me. Well, you know, I was thinking about when I was preparing to go out, when I used to tongue my hair with the iron comb, like the smell of it and the sound of the singe and the dresses that I used to put on and the platform shoes. And the men will be talking about using, you know, that perfume dads used to use.
And the aftershave, them kind of
aftershave, it just bath
cool water, and then cool water.
And I said to them, you just
and Brute.
Brute 45. My dad used to use that, and it conjured up so many different memories for them. They were laughing, you know, they were crying, you know, tears of enjoyment. They were being nostalgic. And I said to them, listen to the power of memory. Yeah, that's just a couple of songs we've played, and it's brought you back to your late teens. Yeah, that's the power of music, especially for Black people, because our music is our therapy. You know, I believe it's our gift to the world. You know, and I use those exercises. I do it with young people, but one of my most pleasurable moments was doing it with elders and seeing them get up and dancing, you know, to these ska tunes and Studio Ones and all the songs they do, even though they had such a difficulty with the Windrush, like coming over, being separated from their parents for a couple of years, you know, getting to know new families, systems, you know, skinhead, no teddy boys chasing them. Within all of that, they were still able to remember the good things.
And produce music like Lovers Rock, all of them kind of things.
Yeah,
come on.
And they were saying, yeah, you know, and those, you know, because Lovers Rock for me was like dancing together.
Yeah,
like
that's my era.
Yeah, the hugging thing is like there's a science. So if you're hugging somebody, yeah, what does that make you feel? It makes you feel
safe.
Yes. And maybe because our parents are a little bit distant and not connected emotionally, they were going out there. My mum said they were going, like, Mum, don't tell me that you dance with man. I don't need to know that. Yeah. She was basically saying because our mum was distant, yeah, she found solace in the Lovers Rock.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. I can I can recognize that. I'm a Lovers Rock baby. I'm from that era. I'm the Lovers Rock baby boom.
Yeah. Yeah, Lovers Rock
So I was
baby.
raised on that, and I recognize even now I love the music, and even like like on a Sunday, I play.
Yes.
It's a you remember those days with
Yes.
David Rogers and theirs on the weekend. Yeah.
John Williams or whatever it was. Yeah, so that's what I mean. If you wanted to recreate a Caribbean house in the late 70s or 80s on a Sunday, you would have David Radigan
That's right.
music, and you would have the 80s soul, and you would have. That's what I mean. It conjures up so many.
We produced a lot of music during that time, and even though I think a lot of the music, maybe, I mean, when we really kind of start to unpack it, part of the reason why the music was so intimate, and sensitive and clean, at that time. Not everything, but clean, generally clean. When you had you're kind of like Shalimar, that kind, come on.
Yeah.
So
big Shalimar fan. Wow.
I love me some Shalimar, but what
That's
it
some
is,
corny tunes, though.
Sorry?
There's some corny tunes.
Listen, Sundays in my house, Shalimar gets played. Don't say that about Shalimar. They're listening somewhere. Yeah. All I'm saying is, we say they're corny, but they promoted love. Yeah. And they promoted harmonious connections. And a lot of them promoted, a relationship, the warmth, the hugs, the touch. Yeah. And when we look at the love languages and we look at, physical touch being one of those things. Mm-hmm. And again, if we had parents who were not demonstrative and weren't operating from their love language, like many were not, then it makes sense that created a whole new generation of physical touch types. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what happened with that? Now that those people were introduced to the power of touch, the next generation, there was no, if you like, not enough guidance coming from that.
I hear that.
So then the music in itself, we only have to look at the trash that a lot of these young people are listening to.
I won't go that strong. There's a lot of good music. I understand.
No, come on. I'm not saying some of it's not good. I'm talking about the trash.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the stuff around, whether it's lyrically from the 90s. Let's look at the 90s now, and the music at that time, it started to sort of wane off. Yes, you had your Joe Desi. Yes, you had your Joe. But then it started to go into that realm. Yeah. And nobody has been able to, they haven't pulled themselves back out of that realm. Now, tell the truth. I'm not lying. Tell me if I'm lying. Anyone tell me if I'm lying. So I'm saying there was a conversation that wasn't had around that time. We just assumed that our children would carry on with the kind of same vibration, but not really addressing the root. Yeah, actually, a lot of that music came out of a lack, versus now if you like, the youths now, they've got abundance of music at their fingertips, make it any which way, and you got no lie told here, no lie. So I'm really interested in, given that, I'm really interested in if you do work with the child and the parent together. And if not, is it something you're
usually outside school? It's usually outside the school setting.
Okay. So, and how well does that work when what's that like when you're working with bringing mindfulness into the conversation, the listening to understand, when you're bringing all of that to not just the child, but the parent? What does that look like, and what results get produced?
So when we do the sessions, like family sessions, and also in classrooms, it's like I need the adults to model the behavior. Yeah. So what used to happen was that I'd do a session and the mum or dad would be doing something else. And I've told them afterwards, this what you've just completely undone the good work.
Right.
It's like I
Right.
need you to be present. If you're asking your child to be present, you also need to model that. Yeah. So they'll get involved in the sessions and they'll see how well their child would self-regulate and realize that they needed to be part of that journey. So it needs to be the whole household doing mindfulness. And when that happens, it means that it becomes part of the culture of the house or home.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's like, yeah,
Absolutely.
everyone needs to self-regulate. Let's just do a minute of breathing exercises. So when the parents are super on it, the children, young people, there's more the structure and the way they come to the sessions is different. And that's what happens in school. I've had some really good teachers, support the journey. And I've had kids, because of that teacher, you know, when I did a counting game, I've had my kids count up to 100 without any mistakes because that teacher has embedded those practices in the classroom. So not just use them when I'm there, they're using them on a daily basis. And, you know, Miss Popey was like, in Edmonton, she was one of my biggest cheerleaders, you know, and the movement her students made in a year, was phenomenal. You know, when they were leaving, they gave testimonies and I was in tears because it was like, they were talking about, some of them were facing immigration. They were like, some of them were like having to leave the country hanging over their heads while they're doing their SATs. Yeah. But they were still able to tap into their mindfulness. Yeah. Some of them were talking about not being able to maybe answer questions or contribute in classrooms, and mindfulness had given them confidence to be able to put up their hand, and be able to contribute where they weren't doing that before. So seeing those real tangible movements, it's one of the joys of the job that I do. But it is really important that you have the adults being part of the journey.
Absolutely, the reinforcement. Absolutely.
Yeah, sometimes just the adults, that's the problem.
No lie.
Some of the teachers have the reasons why. Like, I go into a classroom and before sessions, the teacher's bellowing at them. It's like, now you want me to calm them down.
Right. They've lost control, and then you want you to come in and be, the savior.
No, it goes against everything that we're trying to do. So
do you do the same work?
Yeah.
If we're looking at it from a holistic point of view, do you do the work with the teachers? Do you do a session with the actual teachers as well?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna be real honest now. Teachers are the worst students ever. Just like doctors are your worst patient, and I will let them know that. So I'll give you an example. I did a workshop at M.I.S.P Academy. It was the one, not the one in Hackney Downs, the one in the old Cardinal Pole. So they've got two, and I went in there. So I had all of the support staff. So 3 workshops, a room 30 teachers and support staff. So I've entered the room, and I'm starting to talk, and there's a teacher on her laptop, just on her laptop. 5 minutes into the conversation, she's still on her laptop. So I said, either you're going to be present or you can leave. And she's like, what do you mean? It's like, can you imagine a student coming into your classroom and just on their phone while you're trying to teach them?
Right.
You think it's okay to come into my session and be on your computer? Yeah. So that's a lack of respect. Yeah.
Right.
Professional. And I know you tell your kids off all the time, but you think it's okay.
Yeah. Do as I say, but not as I do. Yeah, a lot of that.
Can you imagine? This is my first impression of you. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression. So either you leave or you close the laptop. And you could see some of them were like, this is make a difference. And I was like, okay, I'm going to show some of you, we've got an hour, I'm going to show some of you something completely different,
Mm-hmm.
that you've never seen before. And some of you will have to look at your mindsets. You need to look at why you're here. Because if you're like that with this 1 hour session, God knows what you're doing when you're obstructing kids. So I said, the whole reason why you're here is because kids like me. Because I went to the school before M.I.S.P was around. I went to Hackney Downs for a couple of years. So you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for students like me. Yeah. Born and bred in Hackney. Yeah. So what I'm expecting is that I'm coming in here to make a difference, so you can make a difference in the classroom. Okay. So if you've got a fixed mindset, leave. You don't have to be here. Yeah. So some of them like adjusted. So where you're sitting, yeah, your posture is all wrong. Change it, please. So I'm having to talk to you like a head teacher, and you're supposed to be adults who are teaching kids. Doesn't work. You know, so it's the whole thing around. It's like you letting teachers.
Well, like, it's all about them being invested in their own emotional intelligence, isn't it? At the end of the day, they have to be invested in emotional intelligence for themselves, for the school, and for the children. You know, and so. I did want to, before we close, I did want to ask you about your work, your father-to-father work. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I did. Big up to Courtney. We were having many conversations. So I did a session. I'm hopefully gonna be doing some sessions in the Tottenham Hill area in collaboration with Father to Father, going into schools in primary schools in the Tottenham Hill area in conjunction. But I did some sessions with the men. So they have men talk sessions, men workshops and talk sessions. And it was basically to talk about and show them exercises around mindfulness exercises. So being present, listening skills, just short exercises they can do with themselves to regulate, and also with their family members. Yeah, that will enable them to kind of talk within the sessions, because there's obviously a lot of stigma around Black men and not talking or verbalizing, and I think it's the most important thing, not being vulnerable. Yeah,
that's and we're not seeing the strength in vulnerability. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's never been You know, I was born and raised in Hackney, and he was like, just to feel safe, you had to be a certain way. Yeah, it was a defense mechanism. Yeah, so if someone looked at you a certain way, you wouldn't take your eye off them, because you know that was a sign of weakness. That was in school. That wasn't even on road. So you can imagine the kids now that, you know, they have to appear tough because that's the thing that keeps them safe. So we've been conditioned, not just in the UK, it's just a part of our conditioning that when we show our vulnerability, that's a weakness. Like when we say we're upset, or we cry, or we say we're pissed off, or we show some kind of emotion, that's a sign of weakness. And I'm telling these young men that vulnerability is a strength. Because you know that's something that you have to work on.
Yes. Yeah, I see
that. This isn't right. I'm not happy with this. I need to find ways to overcome this difficulty. That's a strength.
Yeah, I mean, what I learn about, I mean, even in my field, in the world of childbirth, when I deal with fathers, and if there's always a level of vulnerability for a father, just by the nature of becoming a father or becoming a father again. So there's those kind of unknown areas, those gray areas. And it's really important for them to find their strength in their own recognition of, okay, this is a concern for me. Without that wriggle room, there is no growth. Where there's uncomfortable, there is growth. Yeah. If you're not feeling any kind of vulnerability, and you just feel like, well, I'm a wall. Yeah. Over time, what I see, working with men in different ways, but I've seen that blocks their progress. Yeah. And blocks their ability to really think outside the box or take on new ways of being. and they get stuck in a, you know, in a mode of thinking, like you're saying, fixed. And so I find that can be, you know, quite a challenge. And in my field, I find that it's easier for men to be able to be vulnerable and speaking to me because it's about the need for the new being, but which allows them to look at not just their own, you know, what's right in front of them, but also look back a bit as to, okay, the parenting that they had, the fatherhood that they came from, and the fatherhood that they're looking to create. Yeah. And so they're in a stronger position by dealing with what's in front of them, but dealing with what is. So what is, yeah. What are the areas that, you know, you're unsure about? What are the areas? I always say to the men in my, that I'm working with, you know, no question is a silly question. Yeah. Because often they find that they do, and society, in fairness to them, society has pushed them away from the birth experience, really. You know, you're allowed to turn up just about. Yeah. Yeah, you're allowed to. You're.
You always does. Sabotage.
So it's all good. It's cool. Yeah, but it allows men to start looking at those areas, being able to assess, you know, what it is that they need. You know, you find that a lot of fathers don't get support from other fathers. You know, when a woman has a baby, there's a lot of support. When a man has a baby, it's a bit like, okay, yeah, all right, and then they move on.
Yeah.
So if let's say they have a child that, you know, the birth didn't go a particular way, or the child is sick, or the child has a special need or an educational need, you know, where's the structure for support? When often, especially in society with young people, what I find is when they feel vulnerable, they go on the attack. Yeah, because they don't want to have to deal with that. Yeah, so it's much easier to, if you like, discard that thought, go into denial, you know, cognitive dissonance about these things, these areas that are almost, you know, they're really like shining a light on your life, but they're not areas that they want to look at. But fortunately, in the areas of childbirth, I'm able to sort of take that man from where he is, his vulnerability, and sort of take him from that zero to hero place, if you like. And so allowing him to, you know, find his wings, find his voice in that space. But I recognize that without that level of mindfulness, I get to teach mindfulness between the couple. But I find that, you know, without certain of that training, or if you haven't come across that before, it really does feel new and really does feel, often men can feel kind of attacked, quite defensive. Yeah, when they have to deal with their vulnerability. And, you know, I'd be interested in, you know, how far those things develop over time. You know, I hope, you know, we get to, you know, hear about your work some more. But I really like to see that, you know, the nature of, you know, men's mindfulness be a real thing. Yeah, a real movement, actually. And maybe we'll have a talk about that. But I wanted to
conversations, so many.
Yeah, absolutely. But maybe you can leave us with, I don't know, maybe say an exercise or something that, you know, if you have that an exercise that not only, you know, any child or adult can do. You know, obviously we're in a time right now where, you know, these interesting times, which means online learning, online activities, online. This is online. Yeah, this is brought about because of the dynamics in this conversation.
That's fine. So I'm going to one question in the chat, African rights. So I'm on social media. I probably best place to find me is Instagram because it's the one.
Oh, I'm gonna be popping your hands up at the end. Don't
I'm thinking of
exercise. Don't worry, African rights. Don't worry.
All right. So I'm thinking about finger breathing, alternate nostril breathing, box breathing. Catch your thoughts is quite a good one to play with kids. So which one do you want?
Oh, now you're doing choice.
I'll give you a choice.
Now.
I'll give you a choice.
Well, I don't know. I would. I think the finger breathing is really good.
The
That's
finger
really
breathing is,
good. And I've come across
so
something like that before with the children. So go ahead.
that's my baseline, the finger breathing. And when you say finger breathing, people look at you like you're crazy. Yeah, it's a physical exercise, but it's the most introspection. It's really using your body to focus your mind, yeah, through your breath. Okay, it's that simple. When I teach mindfulness, I just keep it very, very simple, and maybe that's why people can relate. You know, we're not using big, highfalutin words or language that people don't understand. There's a action, so you can see while I'm explaining what you're doing. So we're going to take our left hand, or whatever hand you feel comfortable with, yeah, and we're going to breathe with our hands. So what we're going to do, we're going to start at the pinky finger, yeah, and when you breathe in, you're going to go up the finger, and when you breathe out, you're going to go down the finger. First things first, you only use your nose, yeah, and what I want you to be doing, I don't want to see a race. I want you to, when you're moving through the motion, I want you to slow down your breath, so you're moving very slowly. So I'm going to prompt you, yeah, and then I want yourself and the audience to kind of be doing it themselves, yeah, and then I want you
Come on, I hope you're not doing this at home. Yeah, this is it. Yeah,
I want you to kind of tell me what you were seeing in your body. I don't want to tell you what you should be noticing. You probably know yourself, so I want you to look at certain feelings and emotions that you feel that are happening in your body. Okay. Right. So we're gonna start at the pinky, and we're gonna breathe in, breathe out, 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 and now we're gonna go back. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. So now I just want you to breathe normally and think about what was going on in your body and your mind.
Well, what I loved about it, it was very focused breathing. Yeah, very much a focus. I love this. Oh, I've got someone's doing it already. Someone is doing it as well. Yeah. Yes, Orange, baby. Yes, Orange. What I found out is I found that I was very aware of, and I am into breath work, but I like to, what I got to see is I really got present to not just what's happening here, but what's happening here. Yeah. So my breathing is probably quite shallow now. I'm back in kind of like a stimulated mind, if you like. But with that breath, it was very much a focus, very much, you know, slowing down your thinking processes at that point. Yeah. Being present, not necessarily, to be fair, you know, I could have quite turned off the show. All right, let's go. Bye, everyone. I'm having a meditation. I didn't do some finger work, love. Yeah, good old breathing. Yeah, I could have done that easily because it's very much like it centers you. You almost want to do the other hand. Actually, you really kind of want to go. You feel like one hand is not quite complete.
There's a few other ways that I'm going to show you after your feedback. Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, I found that my breathing was deeper. Yeah. It was more regulated. Yeah. And it allowed me to really center myself in the, you know, center my thoughts, slow my thoughts down.
Yeah.
And yeah, really be present to actually, I'm oxygenating my brain right now. Like really that kind of, oh, yeah.
Yes.
Live
You're a
and
perfect
direct,
student.
oxygenating my brain, everyone, okay?
You just summed up everything. So
Oh, great.
you did. And that's what we need. We want people to use interoception to focus on their body. Yeah. So even though we did you can do petal breathing, which is you open and close as you breathe in and out. You can do different hands. Yeah. Breathe in, breathe out. But you find that you're fully focused on what's going on in your hands rather than anything else that's happening. And that's the power of being present. It isn't that difficult. Yeah. But when done well and done all the time, that's how present you can become. And you just demonstrated that.
Yeah, thank you. I give thanks for that. Yeah, it reminds me of the if you know anything about hypnobirth, it reminds me of a lot of the breathing techniques sort of used around there. Yeah, in terms of like not so much you're using your hand, but the rhythm. Yeah, that rhythm, that rhythmic flow, that oxygenation is really key, and that being able to regulate that, you know, you might find that your in-breath, you know, is shorter, and that long breath, and then on your exhale it's longer, helping you to regulate that. So that was really we've got a few comments in the chat here. It was defo very grounding in here right now. Do you know what I mean? Like, you just want to go and have a meditation now. I'm done with you guys. I'm out.
It's empowering. It changes your physiology.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, in these times, look, you know, I wanted you to come on because of the times that we're in, as well. You know, it's Quarantine Convos, and you know, we've got to start this year, you know, hit the floor running. And that means not just what you're going to get up to, what you're going to produce, but how grounded, how centered are you going to be inside of that? Because there's going to be so many changes. And the changes are happening all the time, and there's those who are living the hypocrisy over there, doing their thing, you know. But that doesn't mean we have to kind of engage in that. That also doesn't mean that we have to, you know, it gives us an excuse to be unpresent.
No, not an excuse.
In fact, this is an exciting time to be present.
Can I just add to that what you're saying? So
please.
Like the last 2 years has taught me so much about myself, and I'm not in a bad way, because I've lost people. I lost my stepmom and everything. It's given me a real opportunity to work on myself. I wouldn't have had that opportunity had I not stood still and not been home and not being in quarantine. So out of every single difficulty, there is like a comfort zone is something that you don't want to be in.
True.
You always want to kind of be on the edge. And when I go on residential with kids and they're asking me to climb and jump off rope and all of this nonsense, it reminds me of, like, when you're on the edge, like when you're really physically on the edge, it really teaches you about challenges in life and overcoming adversity and resilience. You know, we have resilience in abundance. We really do. And it's about tapping into those qualities, those superpowers. Because we are extremely strong people. We need to cultivate that. You know, we're full of superpowers. What are we waiting for? You know, we can do so many things if we choose to. And I've learned that in the last 2 years. And I told you I had a little bit of an accident on Saturday where I was on my bike and I got knocked off by a car. And guess what I did when I was lying on the ground? I did box breathing because I needed to maintain. I started to panic and worry. So I had to tap into my toolbox. And they were wondering, why is this guy breathing? But it helped me. It lowered my blood pressure. I was able to get up. But in that moment of difficulty, I really had to find something that would anchor me.
I think, people don't understand the power of breath, don't really get that power, like, especially in a situation like that, where, if your anxiety is going through the roof, it just kind of escalates the situation. And, the breathing, the centering, the self, I mean, I know from the work that I do with breath work with my ladies, I find that, to be fair, and I don't like to blow my own trumpet, I'm kind of humble, but I teach women about. No, I do.
You don't have to be humble.
I don't need it. I'm not that. Yeah.
No, man. Manage yourself.
No, but no. I'm cool. Look, I've got my own skill set, and I recognize it, and I'm comfortable with it.
I love.
And at the same time, I recognize that the breath work that we do, especially when a woman is in labor in a hospital setting and she's dealing with being monitored. Now, a woman in labor would have to deal with a space where, it's bright lights. It's all action pretty much, right? So her heart rate is naturally going to go up. So it's always, and then they say, right, okay, I'm going to strap you to the monitor. So again, she's restricted. Again, heart rate's going up. So the heart rate's going up, and then, of course, it cascades to a point where her level of anxiety will impact on the baby's anxiety. The baby's anxiety leads to, this and that intervention. And we can alleviate a lot of that. Something as simple as maintaining your breath and focusing your breath. I've seen it. When my clients go off to their their appointments, I teach them certain breath work that they'll need to do closer to, like, when they're having their baby, when they're close. And I find that, their trace, the baby's trace, is absolutely perfect. I don't have to worry about it. It's one less thing we have to worry about. So women, ladies, breath is key. And for brothers, if when I look at the dynamics with our brothers, just taking that time, just as young people, even, just taking that time to breathe, just that 3-second rule, right? Just take some time, count to 3, take a breath, Is it your feelings that's managing this situation, or is it your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions? Because they obviously are the deciding factor as to how you're going to proceed. So, I really appreciate your, the way you've worked through, the challenges that are going on, the dynamics. You can see that the work that you're doing is ongoing. And I just want to kind of like share, if anybody wants to get hold of our brother Stephen, he is on Mindbubbles Project on Instagram. He also, his other handle is Stephen Ismail, and his website is mindbubbles.co.uk. So I really want to thank you so much for coming on this evening. People have loved it. I think that's what we need going forward in the new year. A lot of our conversations are important around such, these are wonderful things to talk about. And they're also necessary. We don't know what's in front of us. We really don't know what's in front of us a year or so from now, especially with the times we're in. So, so I recognize, the real importance for that. So people are saying you've got Africans Arise, wonderful conversation family. Asante Sana, thank you. You've got Orange K Queen with lots of prayers and thanks. And you have Jason Planter here. Thank you, Sister Morton Stephen. A very interesting and informative reasoning. So you know what? You can always look back on this, family, and not hesitate to take a look at this situation and go back, listen to some of it, see how you can use this information for your own life. It's okay to have vulnerabilities. It's okay to, because that's where the growth is. That's where the growth is.
Between,
if you're not vulnerable, you're not growing. And that's all I have to say in the matter. So I want to say thank you so much. I would just close the show. and with the family. And I will, if you wait backstage, beloved brother, and I will speak to you afterwards. So just thank you so much.
Everyone that tuned in.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Everyone who got involved, just say thank you for this exchange, so rich in important information. Give thanks. Yes, thank you so much, Orange Queen. And we will obviously have a conversation afterwards. I'll wrap up, but I really appreciate this. And I think, as a community, we're appreciating this. These are the kind of conversations that need to be had. Yes, we can, acknowledge all the wonderful things that we're doing in the community in different ways, but this level of growth, these subtle nuances, these are the things. These are like a dripping tap. These are the things that last for life. Yeah. If you drip them in slowly into the lives of our children, I know that I started meditating with my children, all of them, from they were 3. Yeah. And it doesn't really matter if they don't do it all the time anymore, because they were raised with it. Yeah. So they know what to go back to. That's their grounding. So sometimes I'll be like, right, okay, I've had enough now. We're having a meditation. Oh, but mom, no, we're having it. Yeah. And so they'll be like, okay. But that's, at least they've had that grounding. And so that breath work, where meditation may not come into to play in some households, that exercise there around the breathing, take that on, especially during these times. There's going to be times that there's going to be quite anxious times ahead, I'd say, for a lot of us, just with the times that we're in. So, really don't hesitate to look at this again as well. So if you didn't get to join the conversation, don't worry, you can always come into the conversation again. I want to say thank you to Stephen. I'm just going to put you back here, beloved, and thank you so much. That was fantastic. Wow, that was awesome. Wasn't that awesome? Yeah, wasn't that awesome? I love that. I love it. I can't wait to do that. I can't wait for the children to do that one. Yeah, I'm like, right, okay, everyone, look what mommy learned. So again, share this. We will see you in 2 weeks' time. All being well, so just keep an eye out. I am hosting the show now. Yes, I have been officially promoted, it seems. So I'll be hosting your Quarantine Convos going forward. And, so I appreciate the love and support and the belief and aspiration in my person from the team. So give thanks to everyone who tuned in, and, give thanks that we are growing in a year. And remember, it's 2020. Bless you. So don't hesitate to think about, how you can stay blessed, how you can bless others. Yeah, don't forget to give now. And we'll see you all very soon. And don't forget, as you know, if you ain't got nothing, you ain't got kush. Till next time, give thanks.
Quarantine Convos. Enjoy weekly discussions with people from around the world, assisting us in dealing with this normal, mentally, spiritually, and physically. We feature nutritionists, psychologists, therapists, personal trainers, home educators, legal experts, and more, bringing you all the information and inspiration you need. Check out Quarantine Convos every Thursday from 7 p.m.